are mode of communication, just like a paper, a picture, or any other communication that you know. The only difference is that we have the location aspect or the location component being the key focus or the key aspect that's being used to communicate in a map. So to make a good map, we have to take both the science and the art, which is the art of creating beautiful things, or the designing aspect of it to make maps. And the reason is because maps actually influence our decisions every day. For example, from where a road is built, how disasters are managed. Maps are often what to use. Now, when we engage the public, we bring the local voices into the picture. And when communities of the public participate in the maps, for example, in interpreting the maps, or even in creating the maps, now the maps become richer and they get to have lived experiences, and we take them just from the data points to a point whereby even non-technical people are able to benefit from the maps. And the maps actually have an impact on someone's life, or even on an aspect in the society. Okay. Now, first, we have to look at why public engagement matters. And I'll start with a brief example that I believe all of us have seen in the past somewhere. And this is the first map, actually, when you look at, when you start getting introduced, for example, into GIS and all that. The first map was created by John Snow. Actually, he did the first analysis, GIS analysis as we know it, spatial analysis as we know it. So there are 4 maps here. The first one is of a region in London. This is back in 1894, if I'm not wrong. And John Snow was handling health cases, and there was an outbreak of cholera. So what he did, he mapped all the deaths that occurred due to cholera, especially where these people were coming from, okay? And then he went and looked at all the water points. When this data was superimposed, they actually saw all the deaths were concentrated around one particular, what do we call it? One particular water point. As you can see here, we have the map of all the water points in that particular region. So through the maps, actually, and engaging the people, he was able to identify where the source of the problem was. And they were actually able to control cholera, and prevented many people from dying. So what we see here, maps shape how we understand our world, and they actually engaging the public helps us ensure the maps reflect local voices and the lived realities on the ground, and also are able to act on data that they help create. So for example, when he collected data with about the water points and the deaths, where the deaths were occurring, or where the people who died out of cholera lived, people could actually see the outcome from that. And the map actually helped solve a cholera crisis in London. Actually, it's in 1854. So maps are powerful. And when we connect them now with the people, the actual agents or people that are supposed to read them, are supposed to interpret them, we have a better impact and better outcomes even in our societies. So, okay, just a minute. I'll move to the next slide. And okay, so now that we know how, like, the impact of maps and what is the place of a map, for example, in our society. Look at how, as professionals or the general public, we make maps accessible. So First, communication is where good cartography begins. As I was mentioned, map is a means of communication like any other document. However, it has the like an advantage of having the location component in it. So a technically perfect map can still fail its audience, and people may not be able to connect with it, or people may not be able to understand it. So if you look at the slide, the first picture, these are technically correct map. For example, for a geospatial professional, for a surveyor or an engineer, these people may be able to actually understand these maps. They may be able to understand a technical map like this, or let's say it's a topo or something like that. Now, when we come to the general public and the people that we are meant to educate, people that are meant to actually be able to understand this map, make sense of it in one or the other, they may not be able to understand it. So accessibility of the map starts with the design. So we use very simple symbols, clear legends, and even readable text. And we design them in a way that we avoid confusing the audience or the readers of our map. So every map tells a message. As a designer or as a professional, it's important to make sure it's easy to grasp at first glance what this map is communicating. So it's also important to add short narratives or explanations that will help people understand the context matter of this map. Okay, so we simply simplify the map without losing meaning. Okay, and then we design a map that is tailored for the specific target audience that you're communicating to. And because it's a means of communication, it's also important to pair it with visuals that people are able to resonate with, and even short narratives to help them understand the context of the map. So as you can see, the second map here, it's more generalized. So you can see a river, you can see the highways, you can see ports, and so on and so forth. Things that you may not see in a very technical not very technical map, and that people can be able to understand, especially the public. Okay, I'll move to the next slide, which is public participation in mapping. Okay, and one of the best ways to let the public engage actually in mapping is to let them map their own realities, okay? What we call participatory mapping. And there are different platforms and even initiatives that are helping in that today. For example, we have crowdsourcing efforts for maps and even data, for example, OpenStreetMap, okay? And even HOTSM. And we have also tools that people are able to use and collect data and be able to generate maps. For example, Cobble Toolbox, we have ODK, we have OSM and all that. And these empower people to capture what they see around on the crowd, and they are able to generate maps that are relevant to their local context or reality. And it also builds the ownership of the data that is generated, and also the local knowledge. For example, in Kibera, there is an effort that young people actually have used to identify water points, schools, and other facilities of interest that are within the Kibera slum that many people have not been able to know, or they're not available in digital maps. And this has helped many NGOs and policymakers within within the slum to actually identify those areas as well. So we engage the public from the data collection, engage them in the mapping efforts, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now we come back on visual literacy, which is what we need to understand as professionals, as a map maker, in whichever field you are. The first thing is designing maps that first understanding the audience, and then designing a map that resonates with them, and what we call here design with empathy. This means helping people read maps as clearly as they would read a newspaper or photo. Because we can't assume everyone understands coordinates or even contour lines, but everyone understands color, shape, and emotion. So good design of a map should focus on patterns and relationships, not just the data layers or the features that we are visualizing on the map. So you should consider the local language or icons that make sense in that context. So for example, if you're speaking to if you're designing a map for visualizing churches and all that, the people that you're showing this data, this map, for example, people that are not very proficient with map reading, or let's say even very proficient with English, but when they see symbols on the screen, they're able to understand. So you use symbols, icons, and even a language they can understand, because this will help them or will help them connect with the map even before they understand it. Okay, and then we focus on clarity and the emotion. So we focus on having features delineated very clearly, with the colors that resonate with for example, with the topic, and that are visible to help the other people understand. And again, for example, you're designing a map for people that, for example, let's say in Kenya, we have Somalis that don't understand English so well, or even Swahili. So what you do, you design a map in their language. When you go, for example, to Ethiopia, they don't speak English, you have to use a language that they understand. Or you are creating a map that should communicate even to the general public, so you use a language that many people can be able to read. Supporting information, for example, legend, and very clearly articulated inside also. For example, the key should have the features that are in the map and very clearly explained, so that a person, even before they understand the map, they can get the context and they can resonate with it quite well. I'll show examples in my next slide here. So this project was done in the DRC. This is in Congo. And it was meant to map health facilities or health infrastructure in a city in the DRC. As you can see, the city is quite large, but to the far end, on the far right, the first map is for the entire city, and then you drill down up to the smallest administrative unit. And as you can see in the first map, there are very, very many health infrastructure, for example, clinics, the big hospitals, level 4s, level 3s, and all that. And even the design in terms of the icons that have been used and all that, it's been very, very clearly designed and placed. So in such a way that it gives someone you can be able to interpret it even without reading a lot. And when you come to the information that is under there, for example, the legend, it's very clear. And other support information, for example, the organizations that have contributed to the generation of this map, is still there, but it's not conflicting with the map itself in such a way that the focus remains on the map. So these are maps that can be used by the community, can be used by professionals, can be used by everyone because they are able to understand it. It's created in this is in French. It's not actually English, so I didn't I didn't translate. I decided to use the map in its original context as it is, because it's for an audience that understands that language. Okay. Now, a minute. Now, from designing the maps and, for example, understanding the context of the maps that you're creating, we now come to how you share and making sure, for example, a map has maximum impact. And one way is sharing with audiences, okay? And one of the biggest places or platforms where people meet today, even though not physically, is social media. Because you may share a map, for example, right now on your, maybe Facebook, on your Twitter, on TikTok maybe, and by tomorrow it will have actually moved across the world, and people start seeing it on the other side of the world. So we are in the digital age, and maps no longer live only in reports or in atlases. They live on social media and other platforms where they can inspire millions, where they can educate millions of people, and where they can have more impact. So one way of doing this is when you post a map online, frame it as a story. What does this map reveal? Why should people care about it, okay? And you use clear captions, relatable hashtags, and even short explanations that will help people understand more. What is this map saying, and why should they even be concerned about training it? In other sense, I'm saying, in addition to the map share value, the value that is in the map. So for example, for the maps that I've shown in the last slide, they are, for example, you can see the number of facilities in one particular region, the number of for example, facilities with ambulances and all that. So people see actually and get to learn something from it. And then make sure the maps are very visually appealing in such a way when someone looks at that map, they actually take an interest in understanding it, actually, and getting to want to know what is in it. Finally, I encourage people to respond, maybe even contribute in terms of data, and even sharing or even engaging with the content that is shared. Okay, and so these digital engagements, especially in social media, transforms maps into conversions, not just visuals. Okay. Now, and then we come to storytelling with maps. One of the major platforms that have been used for this is ArcGIS story maps. And the importance with the storytelling with maps is that a storyline actually gives a map kind of an heartbeat, because a story combines both geography, narrative, and human experience to make complex data relatable. It also adds, for example, photos and other infographics that support the information that is in the map. So for instance, instead of showing just flood zones, a story map tells a story of, for example, a region that is affected by the floods, the people with maps, photos of the impacts of the floods, and the text there supports this information. So the story map helps audiences feel the human impact of spatial change, turning information into empathy, so helping other people understand the local context more. So you use maps and narrative and pair with visuals and other media to support that. Maybe short videos, photos, and so on, and so forth. So I think I'll stop there. But before that, I think the way forward for us at the moment, as we look at the future of Africa and African cartography, we need to look into more inclusion, openness, and more innovation. We must make maps that are understandable and democratize data. So we make data openly available so that people are able to make maps actually without the struggle of finding data, because at the moment, in those who have done maybe medium to large scale GIS projects or mapping projects, the biggest task actually is getting data to do the analysis and also to be able to visualize. So trying to make data available and open to everyone will help us so that everyone can be able to use it. We must also collaborate across governments, people in academia, that is universities, and the communities that we are in. And we must also take this as a clarion call to train the next generation to see maps not as static products, but as living platforms for communication and change. Okay, and about the data, democratizing geospatial data to make it accessible, at Orion, as Kathy mentioned, we are coming up with a platform to make data openly accessible, where maybe, for example, you yourself can post your data there, do your analysis, for example, in QGIS on ArcMap, and still be able to push your data, reports, maps, and even dashboards there for your own consumption and also for future reference, but with an aim of making sure, for example, if I have some data, everyone else is able to access it. Because at the end, the goal is it's just better maps, it's better lives through better information. I'll stop there, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I love how you concluded something we just mentioned last evening in a meeting with Peter and others, and we're talking of democratizing cartographic and geospatial data for education, so that you have better and better maps. Thank you for all that are sending some reactions. Please do, we are many of us. Let's send some claps for our speaker. I'm always excited when I find people are also thinking what you're thinking. That means we already have people to reach out to as partners and collaborators very soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can drop questions on the chat for now. And Godwin, I have my own question. I'll be presenting it as well from your presentation. Yeah. So we have Peter, you're going to take us through a 90 seconds presentation first, and then we head to our next speaker of the evening, Mary Modan. Peter, I hope you're able to share the screen. Welcome.
Okay, yeah, so I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, yeah, so I hope you can see it, right? Yeah, so yeah, hopefully I'll be able to manage the time allocated. Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Mr. Godwin, for the wonderful presentation, and also to all our participants on board, and to our next presenter, Mary Mode. Thank you. It's really wonderful to have this timely conversation and have your immense contribution towards the same. So mine will just be taking you through something that we are also trying to channel and also to advocate highly in terms of the importance of cartography. So it complements whatever we did on our first webinar and this particular webinar and the third webinar that is upcoming, whereby we are trying to empower communities through maps, that is children's cartography initiatives, whereby we are trying to address these critical gaps in terms of the limited access to both early and up-to-date cartography resources, and also the issue on the climate vulnerability due to poor spatial understanding and that disconnect between the community and the geographical environment. Because probably in one way or another, we might also have experienced the same. We find that we were not exposed to maps at an early age, and we were not exposed to cartography at an early age. So by pinpointing these issues, we are able to see that there is that ripple effect due to lack of that exposure. There are some of these challenges that arise. But now with the capacity that we have and the knowledge that we have in terms of the cartography, map making, and so on, and with all our geospatial background, we can try to advocate and create awareness to the learners themselves, to the children, in terms of what map really is and how they can appreciate their geographical environment and how they can now conserve their environments and solve these climate vulnerability issues. So in terms of our solutions that we have, we are currently running a fundraiser that is the Cartographers Cause, whereby we aim to first of all, using the train the trainer model, train teachers, whereby they can now be able to spill back the knowledge to the community in terms of what is the importance of understanding maps and what is the importance of understanding their geographical environment. And from there, now they can be able to appreciate their sense of environmental conservation that is within their communities. Also, we also have the cartography books that is in both English and French, whereby we are using these to, first of all, educate the learners in terms of how they can interpret maps, knowing what is where, like for example, where is our school, where our tree covered areas, and so on. Just the very basic. And from there, they can appreciate what maps are and how they can interpret basic maps. And from there, they can know how they can conserve their environment if it's on the tree areas and so on. We're using these community-based educators, that is using the youth mappers, the students, to help us at least create awareness in terms of map literacy and the geospatial awareness here. There's also now some other books that have been developed by Catherine Jore. We also have the 47 Counties of Kenya and the Compass book, also trying to help the teachers understand and also know the key map making principles. That is not just drawings, but also instilling that geospatial literacy towards understanding the spatial environment, and also towards motivating the new generation and the future generations to come in terms of understanding their world and also their spaces here. So some of our proven impacts is well borrowed from what has been done there before, that is right back from 2019. So some of these works have been featured in, like for example, by the International Cartographic Association, also by Maplines, but that is by the British Cartographic Society, whereby some of these works in terms of the outreaches and so on, what has been going on, they have been documented and the same published and also shared with the bigger audience, all trying to share the methodologies that we are using in terms of these outreaches and so on and so forth. This is also in line with the webinar that we conducted previously, our first webinar, that is the policy and research in cartography, where we had both Professor Kuria and Dr. Kuria sharing knowledge in terms of the importance of cartography driving both policies and also in terms of the research world. Recently, there is also the school visited by Catherine, that is the Brookhurst International School, also trying to share knowledge in terms of importance of maps and also interpreting maps at large. Also, additionally, we also have another training session that we conducted, that was the remote sensing education workshop, that is trying to educate the learners in terms of interpreting satellite images and also what are satellites, because now with the data, as Godwin has mentioned, that's where now we come up building or developing these maps to understand, like for example, what is the current status of our environment in terms of what is the vegetation health, the forest cover, the land use, and so on. So through this, we were able to at least to train 196 children in 4 primary schools, and at least by the end of the day, they were able to appreciate, first of all, what are maps and also what are satellites. And in the long run, they were able to even ask curious questions in terms of the STEM related maybe careers that they can also pursue, which is also our bigger goal and also our main aim, to try and motivate the students to drive more innovators in the long run and also to understand their environment better. We have also been able to engage the Youth Mappers chapter in Dekut on the same, whereby we aim to at least bring them on board in terms of our community outreaches, so that since they already have that background in the geospatial background, they can be able now to train the teachers or the learners in terms of understanding their maps. And they can also be sort of be mentors to them as well. And they can also now appreciate that the course they are doing, that they can also be able to educate others to understand and to utilize the resources within their environment. So as I've mentioned, the current fundraiser goal that we are running, we cannot be able to do this alone. So there are quite a number of resources required, not only financially, but also the in-kind donation, that is the books, and also we have the books and also the expertise for the same. So that is why mainly we need this particular amount, which will help us in the book production. As you have seen, we have both the French and the English versions, and also help in the assessment of the cartographic books to the national level, that is by KICD, and to help in the teacher and learners training workshops that we aim to reach out to Trans Nzoia, Busia, and West Pokot, sorry. Yeah, so every cent, every dollar makes really a difference toward this, and we welcome to support and also to invest in this particular cause that we have. So our target partners, I'll just go through quickly. We have the Youth Mappers, as I've mentioned. We also try to reach out to the ICA, the Bulgarian, the BCS, Fortress Central, ESRI, and other education foundations and the climate-funded NGOs, because through these, by instilling the geospatial literacy to the communities and to the learners, they'll be able to appreciate, first of all, the environment, to know what is happening where. And from there, they'll be able to even get motivated in terms of pursuing these STEM-related careers And in the long run, we'll be able to have more innovators, and from there, instill the need for coming up with good maps that communicate, and maps that show main insights in terms of what is happening within our communities. So why partner with us? First of all, this will promote the geospatial education and literacy that is all around, including maps at large, and of course the scalability. We are envisioning to scaling up to both nationally and internationally across Africa. That is through even also scaling up our books to translating them to quite a number of languages so that they can be used by everybody at large. And of course, this being something that you are starting on, this would be also help you be on board as part of the pioneers in terms of the geospatial children education movement, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa at large. So now our vision with the model that we have, of course, the school trained here and there over the past years. So we are envisioning to now expanding this into the national level, that is by visiting the Trans-Nzoia, Busia, West Pokot, and Trans-Nzoia. So you might wonder why these three counties. So these one are basically based on some of the feedback that Ms. Catherine got, that is some time back then, and also some of the challenges that these areas face. Like we all know, Busia is quite affected in terms of the flooding and so on, and malaria and so on. So if we can train at least the teachers to understand and probably even map out the key hotspots and so on, they'll be able to understand why are all these dynamics happening within our area. And in one way or another, we can also bring on board if it's the government themselves in terms of the decision making and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much about why the three areas. And after that, we'll be able to scale now to the African countries and also the East Africa. We are also looking into bringing on board some of these organizations to help us scale up to to achieve the African Cartographic Education Network. So the long-term goal is to help transform the African children or learners to understand and interact with the environment, and also for proper cartographic education at large. So now the collaboration opportunities. So yeah, there is that the financial support that is through direct funding, that is investing in this particular course, and of course helping us advocate, that is through joint awareness campaign in whatever we are doing. That is, if you're part of an organization there that can be interested in partnering with us and also investing in this particular course, this will go a long way in advocating the work that we are doing, and also in steering ahead this pioneering initiative in terms of educating the learners and the communities in terms of the spatial awareness. And most of this will create a platform sharing that is mutual promotional opportunities. That is by also we also plug into whatever we are doing to promote whatever we are doing in terms of if it's a company or an organization dealing with just spatial data analysis and so on. Through that, we can also be able to show you amazing work, whatever we are doing. And all around, we are open to all creative partnership models. And we believe that we can put communities on a map and we can help them understand better their environment. So this is just I'll just echo what Mr. Godwin said, that this is a clarion call to train the next generation for better map communication and also to make a bigger change. So we are really looking forward to fostering collaboration with the people who are interested in investing in us and also in supporting us, and also to help us leverage and build local capacity so that in the future we can be known that in Kenya, yes, we are in terms of map making, that country is really bright, as we are seeing that Kenya is now steering towards being a space faring leader in terms of Eastern Africa. So in the same way, we also envision having a country that is well known in terms of map making and also cartography, like in terms of the global cartographic organization. We envision that we are well known in terms of map making and also deriving good maps that communicate at long. So let's look forward to democratizing geospatial data for better cartographic education. Yep. So I believe that will be all. So let's have fun with maps. And thank you to, I would also like to acknowledge our stakeholders or people that we have leveraged the previous networks, that is the Dedan Kimathi University, and of course the Remote Sensing Research Group, because it's through their previous engagements that now we are trying to plug into and also to leverage the networks to try and scale up whatever we are trying to do. Yeah, so thank you very much. And yeah, it's an amazing opportunity to be here. That's all.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you. And I hope the participants here present, you've seen how we are struggling using one laptop for a group of learners. So we are really hoping, if you know anyone who can assist us with more facilities, specifically laptops, desktops, and some space to give more quality to them, because they're always very excited. The learners are curious, regardless of the location of the school. So it's been an interesting journey, and you're inviting everyone to join us. Now we are going to have Mary. The topic today resonates with how I got to meet Mary. I met her through her maps on X space. The X space, I mean the social space. I saw her posting some maps. She was doing some work with Red Cross, and you could follow the story and you're not in the location. You could even feel, I saw the word empathy. You could even feel what they were going through as they worked. I don't know if you tell us anything about that. So Mary, welcome. I hope you've rested for some few minutes. Mary is a geospatial data scientist currently pursuing the Erasmus Mundus Master in Copernicus Digital Earth, specializing in geoinformatics and Earth observation at the University of Salzburg. Is that correct? Austria, and geodata science at the University of South Brittany, France. She has previously worked with the Locatel IT Kenya, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, Kenya Red Cross Society, and Geospy Research, contributing to projects in environmental monitoring, agriculture, humanitarian, among others. Beyond her professional work, Mary serves as a regional ambassador for youth mappers, where she empowers students and young mappers across Africa and the world to apply geospatial technologies for community development. Karibu sana Mary, the floor is yours. If you're presenting, you are a co-host.
Okay, thank you so much, Catherine, and good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Muthe, and I'm glad to be also part of the presenters today. Yes, so it'll allow me to turn off my camera and then I can share my screen. Yeah, thank you. So I hope you can see
Keep the questions coming on the chat. We'll be going through them.
So is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. Okay. But you can maximize it. We are seeing the other slides.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So today's talk will be on public engagement and communication in cartography. As Catherine has shared, I'm currently a master's student under the Erasmus Mundus program, and I'm pursuing the Copernicus Master in Digital Earth. Currently, I'm doing geoinformatics and Earth observation at the Paris-Lodron University of Salzburg. So I thought I should start by first letting people know what is cartography. So we're talking about cartography, and maybe it's not everyone who understands what cartography is. And so if you search from Google, it gives you the definition that I have here. So it's an art, it's a science, and it's also a technology. So those are three things. And it also, through these three things, the art, the science, and the technology, we can be able to make maps, and not just maps, the charts to tell the stories. And for us to tell these stories and to create the maps, we need data. So it also involves the data collection. And after the data collection, to have the maps and the charts, we are doing the designing. And then the most important part of it is to be able to study these maps. So after you've made these maps, it's important for people to understand what the maps show, and the maps can either be digital and it can also be analog. So this is the communication channel for the cartography. So as you can see, we have so many components that are being involved in cartography. So we have the environment, the geographic environment, and this is like the reality, what we can see. So if it's a building, if it's a tree, the road. So this is as we see the things. And then we have the cartographer. So with all these, the geographic environments that we have, the cartographer gets to compile this information, and there's a lot of things that goes behind the compilation, because at times you have to do the analysis and not just the visual representation. So you have to recognize if there are any patterns, you have to select the specific information that you want to show to the people, and then the final thing that you have to do, you have to symbolize, you have to find a way in which you should design the map. And from the cartographer, that's where we get the map, and then we have the map user. And today we are talking on how we can involve the map user, who is the public. So the public gets to read, they can analyze if the map shows the correct information. So if they analyze, they are able to interpret. So from the map, a user or the public can be able to imagine how the reality is on the ground. Like, for example, I'm currently in Austria, and maybe before I came here I was in Kenya. So I could like check a map and see how is Austria like. So I could imagine how the reality is in Austria while I'm in Kenya. So from the user, a user can either get back to the cartographer to maybe say that if it's the community, they can give information on how the map can be updated, if the information is useful, or how any other information on the map can be improved. So why is cartography important? Or why cartography? Why are we talking about cartography? So this is a map that I took last month in one of the places here in Salzburg. And the points that I'm going to highlight, I feel that the photo captures the points. So the first thing, it's important because it helps in data visualization and communication. So this was a site we visited that shows one of the lakes in Salzburg. And it also shows some of the places around the lake. And it also has some information about the historical thing that happens around the place. But the map is in German because that's the official language. So with this, there's some information or some data that has been visualized, and this data helps to communicate. Like even for someone who has not been here, if you check, you can be able to see that this is a lake, and if I can zoom the map, you can be able to see some more information. So it's communicating something. Then it also helps in navigation and planning. So with this map, this is an analog map. So nowadays we have the digital, like we have Google Maps. In this case, you might not have used the map in navigation and planning which part of the lake we should visit because we had the Google Maps. But assume if it was, or if it's someone who doesn't know how to operate a smartphone or someone who cannot use a Google Maps, it's easy for them to get to the starting point and make use of the map to navigate in other parts around this area. Then it helps one to make informed decision making. So if I want to get to a certain part of the lake and there are 3 ways in which I can access it, then someone can be able to decide which is the best direction for them to follow to access the specific viewpoint that they want to get to. With this, it also helps with all the things that we've done here. It helps in problem solving. I think the first 3 points explains that. Then something else with cartography, we can be able to read about the history, and this is also a form of storytelling. Yeah, so there's some more information that has been provided on this map, but as I've said, we're trying to involve the public, and one of the things that we can help to do this is to ensure that we embrace culture. So with this map, it has been written mostly in German because that's the official language, but nowadays we have the translators. You can just use the Google Translator and you can be able to read the history about that specific place. Yeah, so I felt the map captured all the points that I had. So how can we make these cartography? So you've mentioned what cartography is and it's important, but is everyone able to make use of cartography, or how can you make your information accessible to everyone in the world? So one thing is to make the map simple and easy for people to understand, like use clear symbols. So if you want to show the lakes in an area, so which kind of symbols can you use for this? If you want to show the bus stops within your city, then maybe the right symbol to use, it's a vehicle or buses. Yeah, so we need to make it a simple design. We need to consider the non-technical people who are coming up with our designs. Then we also need to use plain language, like we need to explain it in simpler terms. I think one of the most things that we really need to consider is, well, Well, trying to communicate, we need to also include, it's not everyone who gets to understand the complex words, the complex terms. So you need to use plain language as possible, like text that most people can get to understand. Then there's always people talking about color blindness. So while making your map, you need to make sure that it uses colors and fonts that anyone can be able to read and differentiate the different features that you have on your map. Then something else, it's there's, as we've talked about culture, so we need to be sensitive while doing the map. We need to consider the local people. Like for example, if I'm doing a map for people whose language they understand is Arabic, then I at least need to ensure my output is in a language that they can understand. Then some people maybe interpret symbols differently. So it's important to understand what different symbols mean to different people. Then cartography, as I've shared from the beginning, it's not just about the maps, but behind the maps, we need the data, and then we need also this information to be accessible to people. So we need to make sure that it's open for access and for sharing. So we need to share the data with people. Like as Catherine has shared, the first time I got to interact with her was when she saw my maps on Twitter, and then we connected and we had a chat. So it's good that you share your work or what you are doing with other people. So how can we involve the public? One of the ways is through community mapping. Apart from the maps that we create using our softwares, the analog, the digital maps, it will also be important if you can involve the community in mapping. This can include just giving them a piece of paper, a pen, and you let them just draw how their community looks like. Yes, so it's basically that. This is just a photo that shows some of the ways that community can map. They might not be able to make use of the softwares, and maybe before you even teach them how to make use of the softwares that we use, we can just give them a paper and a pen, and they can be able to draw the different components that you want to capture. The other thing is participatory GIS. So this is a photo where I was training sometime last year at Garissa University. Yeah, so with participatory GIS, like for example, for this case, we allowed the student to map online using OSM. At the same time, we taught the students how they can collect the data, like using their mobile phones. And we also taught them how to do some analysis with the data. So it's not just teaching them how they can contribute the data, but you also get to teach them how can they make use of these data. So I believe that's also an important way of involving the public. So then we have the crowdsourcing, like getting the data from the community itself. So this was also in Garissa University, where after doing the mapping on the desktop, we walked around the school. So there are different mobile tools that you can get to use. You can, for example, if you are using OpenStreetMap, you can map online, but you can also connect the OSM account you have with other mobile tools. So with this one, we moved around the Garissa University. By that time, it wasn't well mapped, but by the time we were ending our trainings there, the university had been mapped. So with this one, you collect more information, like you are on the ground. So they pick if this is a building, but what happens in this building? Maybe it's a lecture hall. Does it have any number of floors? Does it have doors that can be accessed by people with disabilities? Yeah, so with mobile mapping, you can be able to input more and more information. So crowdsourcing, as I've said, there are two. There's the mobile and there's the desktop. So the same photo is from Garissa University. So we also did the desktop mapping. So beyond the mapping and the data collection, we need to build awareness. We need to help people understand why this is important. Yes, we can pick data, but why is spatial data important? So we need people to be aware of that, and this will motivate people to join the campaign of data contribution, because I think data is the first and most important thing for us before we manage to do any analysis and before we get to do the maps creation. So apart from building the awareness, yes, we can just come here and tell you why it's important, but then what? So we need to empower people and train them how to make use of these tools. So there are many tools that people can use. They're open tools that we can train people on and empower them to continue with their contribution. Then we need to promote open data. So we encourage on data sharing. Like if you've collected, for example, I'll still give the OpenStreetMap example. We have people contributing to data, and this data is open for people to make use of. So we need to make data open. Then it's also important to ensure inclusivity. So apart from the mapping, we need to include the marginalized voices, so like the women, the youth. So we need to ensure that as we do the training, we need to have more of these voices included. And then, yes, we've done all these things, but what of the ongoing projects? We can do all these things, but at the end of it all, we need to still continue supporting some of these projects. And that's where the sustaining of communities comes in. So as you can see, this is a photo from last year too, and we were doing a training at Dedan Kimathi University. By the time when I went there for the training, we only had like 2 people who had joined the OpenStreetMap and who are contributing to crowdsourcing. But by the time I was leaving after the training, we had more than 50 students who had joined. And I think right now the CUT has one of the most active contributors. So you can see with this one, the public was involved. And as you can see, why we're talking about inclusivity, we have a very few number of females who always join some of these activities. So it would be important to continue encouraging some of those voices. Yeah, so we've talked about the making maps and making it accessible to people, but we also need to ensure there's visual literacy. So this means people can also understand and interpret what the map shows. So this is just a photo showed someone holding a map, and then there's the question mark, like, then what's next after this? So we need to teach people how to read maps. It's not everyone who can be able to read a map. So we need to know how can we teach people to read these maps. So it means even if we make the maps, then people can be able to interpret it and get to analyze and make use of it. So we need to highlight some of the key messages. So this makes it important. So if I'm showing the flooding, or like, for example, there's landslide that recently happened in Elgeyo Marakwet. So if you're making a map, we can just show, we need to give more information. We need to interpret this was the extent of the landslide, and then these are the number of people that were affected. Like, we need to tell the story. Okay. Then we need to use visuals that align with culture, as I've said, I've shared that before. Then we need to encourage critical thinking, like we need to help people question and analyze more on what the map shows. Because one of the reasons why we give people the map, it's because maybe we're trying to respond to something, or we're trying to show what is happening. So we need people to see like what information is trying to be communicated with the map. So apart from doing all these things, we need to highlight some of these key things so that we just don't give people, they enjoy the symbols, they enjoy the visualization, but they are not making good use of the maps. Yes, then there's storytelling with maps. So initially when people think of cartography, they just think of a map, like you have a title, a compass, a legend, a frame, and all that. But for me, I believe like maps, it's about storytelling. There's more to just a 2D map. So there are many ways we can tell the stories with maps. We can have story maps, we can have dashboards and infographics. These are 3 examples of the things that I've created. For example, this is a map. This is just a map, doesn't show a lot of information, and it's just showing gender equality among women like representation of women in parliament. And then we also have same, it's almost the same design, but inside here we have more information, like we have infographics. So with this one, we are telling the story of what we are representing. Then we're using charts, graphs, like we've combined different graphics to tell the story. Then apart from this, we try and highlight like the key countries or the key places that we want to show. With this, it can help someone read more on, like tell more about what is happening. Then apart from this, so this like just a general map, this like an infographic. And here we have a dashboard. So this we created, well, it was at Kenya Red Cross, and it was during the flooding time. So right now you cannot see how interactive it is because it's just a screenshot, but it's also able to show more information because with the map you could filter to the different counties. And when you filter to the different counties, you can see the values changing here. I think with the maps, we need to just go beyond like creating the maps. We need to tell more of the stories. Yeah, so as we've said, the emotion part, we need to show maps, to use maps to show change. Like there has been flooding, but before flooding, how was the area looking like? And then we need to show the emotion, like we need people to feel the impact that is happening and minimal. So how can we ensure that there's the outreach in cartography? So as we've kept on mentioning, is we need to raise awareness. We need to show how maps influence our daily life and decisions, like where are maps important. And most people right now are making use of Google Maps. So you can use Google Maps as one of the examples. Then we need to build capacity. Apart from raising the awareness, we need to ensure that it's more people who are coming into this course of cartography, so that we have more people contributing to data. We have more people doing different graphics. Yeah, so we can train students, community, and different officials. And then we need to promote open learning. So if you've managed to get a certain hack or create a certain visualization, just share it on your social media, let people know how you've done it, the tools you've done. If you just notice there's a plugin or if you've built something, it's important that you share with other people. Yeah, so with this one, when you promote open learning, then it's possible for everyone to join the cartography world. Yes, so, and I'm coming to the end of the presentation, and I'll end with a quote that says, when we map, we make the world more visible, but when we teach others to map, we'll make it more inclusive. So it's not just about making the world visible, but we also need to ensure everyone is included. And we've mentioned the different ways we can include people. Yeah, so thank you. And it's open for questions, but I'll give it back to Catherine.
Well, thank you very much. Your claps are coming in. Let's send more. Yeah. So I think I am looking at any questions on the chart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This class should have a sound, an audio, you know? Then you can hear all of that clapping happening. So there's a question from Michael Madiba. I think this one will be responded by Godwin. Good evening. I have a question. Participatory GIS and mapping often requires educating the public on how to understand maps and collect GIS data. What successful approaches or strategies have been used to teach the public these skills in order to enhance and increase participation? Additionally, how can we effectively communicate the impact of data collecting and mapping to motivate and sustain public involvement? So I wish to request Godwin to respond to that question. Then the next question from Dumbiko Zingwe. I'll direct it to Mary. How is the roadmap looking like when it comes to interactive digital maps, living and breathing maps, and not just mere passive paper report maps that generated from the usual software, but visualized within tools like virtual reality? So the first question, I pass it to Godi, and the second one from Dombiko to Mary. And keep the questions coming.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mary, first for the presentation. It's also good to see you after quite a long time back at GOPC and also the Technical University of Kenya. Now, about participatory GIS and mapping and educating the public, one of the approaches that I've seen work is involving the general public in I'll give an example in active projects. So, for example, for the projects that we have done in, for example, in Kajiado and Narok, we usually, when you're doing the mapping, you involve the general public or the community. In, for example, I'll give an example with one project that we did for mapping land degradation in Mashuru, that is in Narok County. Now, we realized most of the areas that were heavily degraded were on the steep slopes towards along the rivers, or the roads are leading towards the rivers, and also the farms that were nearby. So for us to create maps that could help us and also the community, we had what we call focus group discussions to help them, to have them help us identify, for example, the features and points of interest that we were majorly interested in, especially for our analysis as far as the project was concerned. And when we come to intervention, when the results are generated from the analysis and all that, it's also important to sit down with the community and take them through, for example, the features they identify the maps that you created with them, and you also involve them in the results, show them what the outcomes are, and even the final maps out of what you've done. Number two, there is a huge gap, especially in data collection. And you'll find that most of the times when you're doing some work somewhere, people tend to have, for example, you get people from elsewhere to collect the data for you, but it's also usually better when you do it with the community. Have maybe volunteers or enumerate people from the community that you can train in data collection, and that you're going to work with through the processes of data collection, when you analyze the data, when you generate the final output from the community, because this one ensures that even from the people, much of the results are generated, and also the knowledge that is found there still goes back to the community and helps people to understand more. And you're also able to build the capacity of the people in the community that will help others actually in using such tools for data collection, also understanding maps and the place of maps. Now, I think those are two approaches I've seen work. I believe there are others that are out there. Now, how can we effectively communicate the impact of data collection and mapping to motivate and sustain public involvement? I think things are starting to take shape in, especially in Kenya right now. People are starting to understand the actual value of spatial data, and how we can fast track that is advocacy, speaking to people, because for us, we understand what is the place of this data in the community or even in the country. What is the value of mapping to us as a people? So we educate the others, and we also show them maybe the way they are able to access data, the way they are able to contribute also to crowdsourcing initiatives of data collection of spatial data, and also the intake of mapping products from the data that has been crowdsourced from the public. I think if we do that, things could move a little bit faster. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mary, you can respond to the next question. You are muted.
Okay, sorry. So how is the roadmap looking like when it comes to interactive maps? So I would say the roadmap is that most people have started taking that path of moving from the paperwork to the interactive world, because with the interactive world, it becomes easier to share more information. As I've showcased on my presentation, I've shown a 2D map, like a paper one that is sort of like a paper map of gender equality. And then I've also showcased dashboards. So if you've noticed with the dashboards, we have more information, like more statistics. With the paper, there's limitation because we're trying to make sure that the map is not too much congested, like it's readable. So there's that limitation on the kind of information that you can be able to represent. And then when it comes to like, he mentioned the tools like virtual reality. So it has become a technology that people are embracing, and I believe that's where we are heading. So instead of like, for example, if it's on floods, instead of just showing a map where it has flooded, then with VR, people can be able to get into the scene. So VR, I'm sure most people maybe have used them in games, like this, if you've used it. So the same way you've used it maybe for gaming, if you're moving around and everything. So it's also being integrated in the geospatial world where people can get into the virtual reality. So the community can be able to see like maybe the water rising. So with this one, it's more present and people can feel it more rather than just when we're trying to show. With the 2D map, we're just trying to show and people might not be present in the moment. If you want to do like maybe urban planning, then it means people can be able to walk in to the city virtually, and then they can be able to see maybe if it's a road construction, then which will be the best place to do this construction. Yeah, so I believe this is the road that most people are currently taking, and there's more potential in it, and there's a lot more that we can explore in that sector. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I feel we shall need some panel discussion at some point. Now, I have a very quick question that I need the both of you to address as you also give us your closing remarks. So there's a statement you heard yesterday when you're having a meeting with Peter and the team, and we're talking about we need to democratize. Actually, I'm reading the notes, democratize access to cartographical and geospatial education in Kenya and all across Africa. So what are your thoughts on how we can go about that? Godwin mentioned democratizing the geospatial data so that is accessible to all. How do we go about the education? Considering, especially for our young learners, we do not have that much available for them. So you can give a comment on that and then give your final remarks.
Okay, so I mentioned democratizing geospatial data, and in addition to that, cartography itself. One way we can be able to address that or improve maybe the access is number one, it's advocacy. There's one thing we used to do when we were in the university, and I think for some time even afterwards. Number one was training people in map making. There is for people that are not very technical, especially in GIS, there is a very, very huge fear of the software and even handling it. So we made that accessible through a club, it was called the Geospatial Sciences Student Association. And we could train students actually, and these are students training themselves. And some actually even from other schools in the university that were not doing GIS or surveying, but they were borrowing such a unit. So through that, we saw there was an impact of people actually having that interest to learn, to make maps, and even to have some skills in GIS. Number two is, for example, you have ArcGIS and QGIS. In terms of software, I would say they both have more or less the same functionalities, whereas one is proprietary, the other one is not. One is open source. So making people understand that these tools are openly available and you can access them and be able to use them will still help people in actually making maps, and those that are digital maps, not the actual drawing maps on paper. That is one step. That is the second step. And the third one is access to data. It's a huge issue actually as we speak, because you may need, let's say I'm not very, very well conversant with map making, but I want to maybe have a map of all my farms, of all my land, where they are. So without that data, or having a way to access that data, I may not be able to do that, or even visualize my home, the roads are out here. So having that data is also a step. And personally, apart from training and advocacy, when we started a small farm that is Orion, we envisioned having some software that is proprietary and one that is actually open to the general public to help us solve some of these problems that are in the country, especially in the geospatial space. And one of the problems was we all have a lot of data seated in our computers, okay? And I may want to make a map, but I have to go back to look for the data, and you may be having that data somewhere. So having a platform where we can share this data openly, say without paying or without the control of a specific organization to say, we only need agricultural data here, or we need health data here. No, anyone can share their data and they can pull data. We embarked on building the Orion Spatial Data Hub. I couldn't share the link so that people could look at it. And then it's actually complete, and we are yet to launch it fully, but anyone can be able to use it. So with access to data, you are also able to integrate, for example, with a tool like QGIS through a plugin, get the data, make your map, and publish it online. Publish it even on the Spatial Data Hub for people to see. You're able to publish a story map as well. So I think if we do that, we are going to open up let's say cartography as it is, slowly by slowly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mary, respond to the same question and give some closing remarks.
Okay, so thank you, Catherine. I hope you can still hear me. So on how we can democratize or make sure that cartography, or basically geospatial, is open to everyone. So I think one thing, the first thing is that maybe people need to be ready and willing to embrace it. That's always like the very first thing. So, and how they can be able to embrace it and take it in, it's first making sure that they understand the importance that comes with geospatial or spatial. Like even back at home, when you could say that you're doing a course in GIS, like you can't say GIS, you just say survey for them to understand. And so I would say the first thing is building awareness before making even the data, the training and everything. What is GIS? Giving examples. Because if someone doesn't understand it, you either use an example of Google Maps or survey. And I believe it's a very broad field. It goes beyond the two things. And then I believe if people get to understand the importance of these, then we can have more people because the other thing that is tricky in the field, it's when it comes to data, yeah, the quality of the data standardization, and all those things. So we've talked about crowdsourcing, but also crowdsourcing comes with its own disadvantages, like the quality, the standardization. So if someone marks this as a building, someone comes, marks it as a different thing. So we also need to get to understand more on the standardization of the things. We need to make sure that they understand these things. So the other thing, as we've said, it's just on the training more people, like on the how to make use of these softwares. And we have some of the open source tools like the QGIS and everything. And then also, as we've shared, we are going beyond the 2D maps, which means if you're going into the interactive world, the VR world, then some of these desktop softwares might not be able to accommodate these new advancements. So you also need to let people embrace in the other part, which is in automating some of these processes. Yeah, so for example, like as Godin has shared, so he served as the chair GSSH of Special Sciences students, and I served after him. So we got to train many people, and I believe there's an impact that came from this thing. And then, for example, this month, it's the GIS Awareness Month. We have the GIS Day. We have different people organizing different things. So I believe with this, it's also being made open to people. Like, for example, I was here and I was wondering, how am I going to celebrate the GIS Day? And then just come across a poster that says there'll be a mapathon around Austria. So they're still also bringing us together. So I'll make sure I at least celebrate the GIS Day there. Yeah, so for me, I believe we are heading on the right direction. The building awareness is the first important thing, because, for example, there's a time we did some training to some government officials. So you train them and then they're like, what's the importance? Where is money coming from? So for them, it's not just about GIS or the importance. They need to know how is this translating to money. So that is something else. So just teach someone, but they're not willing to embrace that. They want to see the end goal. So we need to also let know the end goals that comes with all these. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It has reminded me when I was telling someone, some of us need some upgrading on how we even present our maps, especially people in the geospatial space. And one told me, if I have a car and I drive badly and I get home, I didn't have an accident, I am okay. I don't need to upgrade. I delivered. And this is a season also for those who are in Kenya when our children from the cities come to the village and they see a dog and they think it's a goat, okay? Because of the exposure they have about it. And another example that happened last week in my house, my 8-year-old had never seen the black bean. You know, the njahir, the black with the white. And he was like, why are you soaking beans and rice? And I realized he has not seen them before. And actually, no, it's a bean. And after soaking, he wants to know why is it turning brown? It was black, you know? So that exposure, yeah, Joseph. So that when we don't have that exposure, and that's why at GeoMinds, you're so passionate about working with learners straight from primary, early years of learning, all the way to high school, so that we have everybody in all the learning professions appreciating the power of maps. And then we'll have now those government officers who already know, yeah, maps are important. So when I get an opportunity to learn more, to even interact with the software, then even develop maybe my own map, they will be excited about it because they will know how important it is. So we are going to announce the last webinar right now. I think, Peter, you can display that as you also close for us. Thank you very much, Mary, for even taking this time after a very busy day. All the best in your studies. And I am already calling you Dr. Mary. I think I told you that. So I'm really excited for the journey you're taking. Next, Professor. I want to appreciate Dr. Kuria, who is here with us. I hope he has noticed the Kut being featured in almost all the photographs by the presenters. So we appreciate what's happening there. I don't know if it was we are able to access the university easier. So we are challenging ourselves also to go to others. Godwin, it's been a pleasure knowing you here. And trust me, you're seeing an email from us very soon. We want to collaborate with you. And just as Mary has mentioned, we may have a lot of data. I remember we had discussions around Kenya National Spatial Data Infrastructure, but then the data may have been quality for whatever it was collected for. So before we consume it again, someone has to know what was the data for. And then I see, am I improving on that, or do I need again to collect? So thank you very much. Please, participants who are still here, let's give another round of applause to both our speakers as Peter projects the final poster as we leave. Asante sana, thank you very much. I want these claps to have audio. I think I'll talk to Zoom. Peter, please close for us as you tell us when is the next and final webinar of this series. I think we'll open again the new year with a panel discussion.
Yes, hello, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, so first of all, thank you to all our speakers and to all our participants. It has been an amazing session and an amazing webinar. Quite a lot of things have been discussed in terms of democratizing data to enable access and also to enable good map making and also to drive the geospatial literacy and making good maps that communicate and derive key insights that is what is happening within our communities. Also, quite a number of things have also been discussed in terms of creating awareness and also sharing what we do. It's also amazing to learn what Godwin are developing, and very soon we'll definitely reach you out in terms of the collaborations, which I also take this opportunity on behalf of Cartographers Cause and German at large to invite you all to partner with us, to invest in us, and also to help us. We continue pioneering this amazing initiative in terms of growing the African Cartographic Network to help people appreciate the use of maps and what maps really are, and not only just maps, that is not only basic drawings, but also coming up with maps that really communicate what is happening within our environment and how we can improve what is happening around us. In that side, so we have been conducting quite a number of webinars. So we had the first webinar, and this is our second webinar, and we have been able to prepare our third webinar. That will be on the 4th of December, and we have been able to invite our amazing speakers. That is, we have Arina Viziriano from she is a book editor from the BCS, that is the British Cartographic Society. She will be sharing the amazing work that she's doing and also the multidisciplinary opportunities in cartography. We also have Mr. Vance Russell he is the principal consultant at 3.xyz. We'll also be getting to hear his experience in terms of the various applications and the multidisciplinary opportunities in cartography. Because in everything that we do, it's usually tagged to a particular place. And now by combining all this, we can come up or map out whatever is happening where, to understand really what is happening where and why. Because as soon as we know what is the location of a particular activity in an area, we can now be able to appreciate and also to derive meaningful insights from what is happening within our communities here. So thank you very much. We invite you to our third webinar that is on 4th December. The same will be shared via email, and also the registration link will also be circulating from now henceforth. Yeah, so asanteni sana. We look forward to having on board in our Cartographers course and also in future projects. Thank you.